Good afternoon and welcome to yet another program, another edition of Government in Transition, a special program brought to you by the People's Progressive Party. Civic, I am Michael Gordon. I'm joined today by Attorney at Law Sanjeev Datadin and former Minister of Finance, Bishop Juan Edghill. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me with today's program.
Good
Well, Michael,
afternoon.
thank you for having me. Sanjeev, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Bishop. Good afternoon, Michael. Good afternoon to your viewers and your listeners.
Let's jump straight into it. What we've seen in Guyana in the past 48 hours, in my mind, and described by many as unprecedented. The Caribbean Court of Justice gears to rule on the case before it relating to the Guyana elections 2020 within the next just over 24 hours. However, in the last 48 hours, you've seen scathing, unwarranted, and in the words of the release, most recent release by the Bar Association of Guyana, an unprecedented attack on the Caribbean Court of Justice. Sanjeev, I'm going to ask you to lead off in the context that it's an ongoing case. Many individuals have endeavored to jump into the meat of the matter, even on the eve of a ruling of the Caribbean Court of Justice.
Michael, what is happening is unprecedented. I've been at the bar for more than 20 years. This is unprecedented that a government and officials in a government would encourage its citizens to engage in such a rabid attack on a court that is seized with dealing with a matter that is of such national significance and importance. We have to realize the Bar Association has made a very strong statement. The statement is very clear. You should refrain from attacking the court. You should refrain from telling the court what to do and what will happen if they don't do it, which in fact is a threat. And you must be very careful that you are of course allowed to comment and to make comment on proceedings. That's every citizen's right. But you have no right to threaten a court. You have no right to have protests or seek to organize protests to influence what takes place in the Caribbean Court of Justice. You have no right to put an advertisement in the newspapers on Saturday that saying that the court must do this and the court must do that. This morning, I saw Mr. Imran Khan wrote an article in the Jamaica Gleaner, which is utter trash, but he writes it with an undertone of threats to the Caribbean Court of Justice that if you don't do what we want you to do, then the Caribbean Court of Justice will fold up and go away. And CARICOM, if CARICOM doesn't do what it is supposed to do, that CARICOM is going to fold up and be disbanded. So these threats, which are not uncommon, they have made threats to every institution, organization, or individual that has spoken up against their rigging. Do you realize, Michael, that right now in Guyana, saying that the elections there's an attempt to rig and there is a rigging cabal, you get no resistance from anyone. I recall the first time that I said this is a transparent attempt to rig an election, which was on the 4th of March. And everyone said, how could you say that there's rigging going on in Guyana? And there was such an outcry. I had said it on a live broadcast from Newsroom from the Hatfield Street, the Ashman's building. And everyone was saying, how could you say that? But now when you say it, no one questions it. There is a blatant attempt to rig. And rigging, the people who are rigging, that cabal, they don't want the spotlight. They don't want criticism. And they don't want people and organizations of worth and of standing to tell them that what you are doing is wrong and to identify and to hold them to account for it. Now, the Caribbean Court of Justice is an institution under the CARICOM Charter. It is a court to which 4 nations so far go. The judges there are independently selected and they are distinguished jurists. Now, why do you want to attack them in the way that they're being attacked, Michael? It is clear. You want to, A, influence them, B, intimidate them, and C, and most importantly, you recognize that that court is independent and will rule in accordance with law, and you want us to hold on to what the Court of Appeal has ruled. Yet no one says that what the Court of Appeal ruling is right. All they're saying is that it's final and you can do nothing about it. No one, and I challenge anyone to justify the ruling of the Court of Appeal.
From all indication, that's what APNU FC cares about, ensuring that the Court of Appeal ruling is final. Bishop, I want to bring you in on this particular issue as it relates specifically to the fact that the threats from APNU FC to the CCJ are coming as if they have won an election and they will embark into government in a manner where they can execute some of these threats. The reality needs to hit home. In fact, the reality has hit home. And these acts you're seeing more or less are acts of desperation. The APNU FC will not assume government and therefore cannot execute the threats. It cannot be a means to an end. You refer to it in a previous program as some method to their madness. Well, what is the method?
Well, it is the might is right approach. Might is right approach. That's the PNC's modus operandi. That's the way they have been operating. Now, what they're actually saying, we used to bully the streets to get our way. Now we're going to bully the halls of power, whether it's the legislature, you don't want to accept a no confidence vote, whether it's the judiciary, you don't want to accept a ruling of the court. Might is right. You're going to bully the diplomatic community. You're going to bully every opinion maker. Now, what is worse and what was comical, I've never seen this anywhere in the world before. A government who claims to be legal in office and who is expected to be sworn in for a second term. Yesterday, their surrogates, they are mounting protests against the apex court of the country with threats. Now, this is a people who know that they have lost an election. We had a similar situation, which I think we spoke about yesterday in Barbados. The APNU AFC will not be in government to shut down CARICOM or to pull out of the court the CCJ. They will not be there. The democratic will of the people will prevail. And what is worse is if you know you have won an election, if you know you have behaved yourself properly, like Kyle Greenwich said to his own colleagues recently, why are you making all the noises? If you know you are right, if you believe that the Court of Appeal has exclusivity and finality in this matter, why do you need to go in such a vulgar manner that the Bar Association and others have had to come out to condemn this vicious attack on a court just days before its ruling?
But
and I want to remind last night.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Because I'm about to say, and to both of you gentlemen, the CCJ is not there to implement some diktat in accordance with its own whims and fancies. The CCJ is there.
It's to interpret the Constitution.
Interpret the Constitution of Guyana. And of course, yes, they should be made to rule in an independent manner without fear or intimidation. But it's not as if just similar, and this is similar to the CARICOM observer mission statement. The chairman of CARICOM did not wake up one day and decide she wants to intervene in the affairs, the political affairs of Guyana. The Caribbean community was invited by President David Granger. The Caribbean Court of Justice similarly is there to interpret the Constitution of Guyana. It's not there to implement whatever it wants or to rule on whatever it wants. Both of you gentlemen.
Well,
Who's going
you
first?
see,
Sanjeev, go ahead.
yeah, you see, thank you, Bishop. You see, the thing, Michael, is this. If, as Bishop says, if you had nothing to be worried about, if you were right, if you had been elected, if you were awaiting to go into government, you wouldn't need to behave in this vulgar, rabid manner and all of this desperation where you behave as if no one should interfere, no one should come. Why are they coming? It is like if you are trying to break into a house and you're trying to steal and you get angry when the dogs bark, you get angry when someone turns on the light, you get angry when the homeowner comes to throw you out, you get angry when the neighbors turn on their lights, you get angry when the police come, because you're not getting to break into the house and steal in peace. So everything that they're doing, which all of those things they're entitled to do, the dog is certainly entitled to bark, the people are entitled to put on their lights, the man is entitled to throw you out of his house. You are now vexed because they are doing that. And you have to realize the realities of where we are. You say that there's foreign interference, but more than 50% of the electorate voted for the PPPC. And without the help of the foreigners and without their words and their pressure, this rigging cabal would have bullied and tried to do what they wanted to do with impunity. So more than 50% of the country want the foreign assistance. It's not interference. You went to the court, you went to a court with a less than stellar decision, and there's an appeal. Now, if you're convinced that all these lawyers that you have spent hundreds of thousands of United States dollars to retain from all across the region, from Grenada, Antigua, Trinidad, Barbados, everywhere, and you have retained them all, and they have all told you that in their opinion, the court has no jurisdiction, and sit quietly and wait to see whether they told you what you wanted to hear and they took your money, because you will find out. Only tomorrow you have to wait until and allow the court to do its job. But for you to pontificate like Imran Khan, who is nothing short of a bully, what he is doing is threatening an entire court. You know, the Barbados, the previous administration in Barbados did something similar to that. And they went to the election and lost every single seat. Prime Minister Motley has no opposition in Barbados. One of her people had to say that he will be treated as leader of the opposition for constitutional reasons. But the reality is this: it's a progression, right? You tried since the no confidence by fooling people that the Constitution doesn't mean this, the Constitution means that the Constitution it represents something else than what it is, and that what you are doing is well within the confines of the Constitution, that you are doing everything that is right. But you know the saying, moon could only run until daylight catch it. An election day came, and all the lies and all the foolishness that you were doing caught up with you. And the people spoke, and the people voted for Dr. Irfan Ali to be our president. But you don't want to leave now. So you've got this whole chicanery going round and round, round and round in a circle. But where will it end? This is a dispute as to what a section of the Constitution means. We need to have it interpreted and addressed. What must happen is we have to get to the stage. You went to the Court of Appeal, you presented your arguments, they have been. Now we have gone to a court above that. The apex court for Guyana is the Caribbean Court of Justice. We've presented our arguments, and so have you. You should have the decency to sit and await the hearing. Why are you so desperate to try to run ads everywhere? And why are you desperate to try and say that if the court doesn't do this, the court will be disbanded. If the court doesn't do this, we are going to withdraw from CARICOM and we are going to withdraw from the court. Who is going to withdraw from CARICOM and the court? They won't be in government to do that. So how are you going to withdraw from CARICOM? How are you going to withdraw from the court?
Sanjeev, that has to be juxtaposed against the reality and Bishop Edghill of the not just the decency. I'm going to refer to more specifically to the asininity of the spurious claims about sovereignty, and it also relates to the point you made about over 50% of the population wanting the input of these international organizations. You find just over 40% of the population conveniently, and not only led, but in my view, hoodwinked by their leaders to speak to the whole notion of sovereignty in the affairs of Guyana, when these very institutions and individuals have been invited in one way, shape, or form, Bishop Edghill, to participate in elections and other issues within the Guyana space.
Well, Michael, it is instructive. All of the organizations, whether it's the Commonwealth, OAS, the CARICOM, the Carter Center, they have all accompanied Guyana in this journey towards the restoration and causing democracy to become enshrined in our political architecture, coming from that 28 years of rigged elections and undemocratic rule. They have accompanied us. The international financial institutions have been our developmental partners. There was a time when there was no US aid that was present in Guyana. That came after the restoration of democracy. But what is important, since 1992, every one of those groups that have observed elections in Guyana and have issued reports did so at the invitation of the state party. The state party meaning the government in office at that particular time. So it is the government or the state party that invites these organizations to participate in the observation missions. We have an act that facilitates their involvement. There is a law passed by the National Assembly that facilitates Electoral Observation Act. So GCOM accredits these organizations. Now, Mr. Granger was very happy to go to the open lot across from Lamaha Camp Street to address his rejoicing crowd that before the cock crow, he will be sworn into office. All of the international partners that are being cussed out had said it was a peaceful, orderly, fair, transparent elections up to that point. He was happy. But when Mr. Mingo's fraud, like Sanjeev was just talking about, when the dog started barking and the neighbors put on the light, they get angry. But I have to carry to the logical conclusion now, Michael and Sanjeev. The police showed up and hear what they're trying to say. I am the owner of the house. That is where they are now. It's not that they were trying to break into the house. They're now making the case. I'm the transported owner of the house. All I'm doing is going home. It's mine by right, by inheritance. And you know what? The people in the house have committed a fraud. That's why they're in the house. And all the dogs that are barking have been bribed. And all the neighbors that are putting on lights, they have been socialized and corrupted by that fraudulent group who's in the house and want to illegally occupy the house. They have decided to change the narrative, and everybody's watching them with disbelief. And they're continuing with their aggression. So here where their aggression is gone to now, the law lords, who simply have to interpret the Constitution and to tell us where we are, to bring back some sense of decency and normalcy in this dispute. Now, they're not waiting for the ruling. Somehow they know that the case got holes. I laughed this morning when I saw the Chronicle. 6 lawyers agree CCJ has no jurisdiction. You know who are the 6 lawyers? All 6 who participated in the case. I thought this was independent observers, people who are not associated with the ruling party, independent thinkers who was trying to put pressure on the case. You have presented your case, you have done your research, you put your case to the law lords, the justices. Now simply wait on a ruling. But what they're seeking to do now is to use muscle, because the PNC is a party of muscle. They went to the streets with their big sound system to use muscle to intimidate. We got this lock. The president went on bench cup radio program to use muscle. Lowenfield's numbers must be used. And that muscle that is now being exercised at the CCJ, after tomorrow, that entire machinery will switch gear towards GCOM and Claudette Singh in particular, who has the casting vote. So I could predict it is the same operation that will be coming, because when she now have to sit and decide, they will be putting that same kind of pressure, intimidation, bullyism, condemnation, stirring up old story, trying to find fault, to create confusion as if she can't act constitutionally and properly. So it's the same might is right approach. Michael, I think your mic is on mute.
You referenced the most recent statement by Karen Greenwich, who, by the way, is the immediate past, well, not immediate past. Karen Cummings is the immediate past Minister of Foreign Affairs. But for all intents and purposes, he is in some way, shape, and form, the Director General in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whether it is so or not.
He was a Foreign Secretary.
Foreign Secretary was his title.
Yes. If you have acted properly, you don't have to, at the same time, prove that you acted properly by censoring other people and shouting them down for voicing a view. Sanjeev, this is quite interesting. This is a leader within the APNU AFC coalition saying this to fellow APNUites. I see a lot of arguments in Guyana, even by very senior officials in the country, about sovereignty, which are inappropriate. This is quite stunning coming from around the leadership ranks of APNU FC, Sanjeev.
Well, you see, all the arguments about sovereignty, they forgot. In 2015, when the elections were done and when things had just finished with the election following election day, they were really interested and supportive of all of the statements from the ABC countries, from the Carter Center, from the OAS. They were all very interested in those statements that encouraged that the electoral process in Guyana remain peaceful, that there be a transition of power. But now they're resisting that because they've lost. And every person that has said a word or lifted a finger against them, they have come with the most vile attacks about the country, the dignity of the person, and every other attack that they can do. It's basically in Guyana, as we say, the minute anyone speaks up about it, it's a whole cuss down about everything. So only APNU must speak. Only their voices must be heard. But sovereignty, Michael, rests with the people. Rest assured that that resides with no political party. Sovereignty rests with the people. And as you well know, the persons who are speaking, they are speaking from what they have witnessed. The American, the ABC countries, the ambassadors, the Carter Center, they are speaking about what they witnessed with their own eyes. and what they saw. And they're saying this is not right. And of course, the PPPC is saying, look what they are doing. And we are highlighting it as best we can and bringing it to the attention of the world. Because if we don't, they are going to get away and try to get away with the rigging. So you have to expose them for who they are. You have to expose what they're doing. But we know Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves made a comment that there is a charter among all the CARICOM members that gives them a duty that if you observe that in any one of the territories, the rule of law is being undermined, it is your duty as a fellow member of CARICOM to speak up against it and to encourage that government or that leadership that is in place at the time to correct it and to not allow it to go unchecked. Now, the charter gives all of the CARICOM territories this right to do that. And look at what happened. Granger himself said they were the best people to come and look at what we were doing and to supervise the recount, well, witness the recount and observe it. They came, they observed, they said they were of the unshakable belief that it represented the will of the people and was sufficient to form the foundation for a declaration of the winner. The unshakable belief, that's strong words, but that doesn't suit Granger and the rigging cabal. So they don't want to accept that. And they want to continue to shout down Prime Minister Motley and to shout down Prime Minister Gonsalves, to shout down the two former Prime Ministers, Goldin and Owen Arthur, to shout down Trinidad's Rowley. Everybody who will disagree and point them out that what you are doing is unlawful, that you are thieves, you are trying to rig an election, and it's amazing that they're doing this with such, in the open. They really think that people are not seeing or observing it. Lowenfield just discards 115,000 votes. He thought nobody would miss it. He thought nobody would notice that the numbers are different. He thought nobody would notice that those numbers were different from his previous numbers, which were different from Mingo's two sets of numbers. What exactly is GCOM doing? But he has instructions. The commission has spoken. The chairwoman has spoken. She said, you need to do this in accordance with the recount data.
We're almost out of time, Sanjeev. I want to bring you in specifically, and you mentioned Lowenfield, and both you and Bishop in closing. The numbers, the most recent numbers presented by Lowenfield, it must be noted, were presented at the time where there was a stay on proceedings instituted by the Court of Appeal, which makes, to my mind, which nullifies the entire presentation, that final submission by Lowenfield. So as we prepare for the CCJ ruling tomorrow, of course, it moves back to the hands of the Guyana Elections Commission, led by retired Justice Claudette Singh. Where do we go from here? What are some of the expectations in closing?
I think in closing, Michael, that look, it's very simple. The court is going to do its job. It's going to determine whether to vacate the orders of the Court of Appeal. It might even determine on what to do with Mr. Lowenfield's report. But it will ultimately fall back to GCOM to carry out its constitutional mandate and to declare who the winner is. In fact, the CARICOM report mentions about the amount of things that are going on in Guyana and the amount of persons who are that the government is trying to get to do things. But ultimately, the task of doing these declarations and the task of declaring the winner falls to GCOM. And CARICOM had a very good paragraph about it, is that it matters not what is said and what is said at the various press conferences, the law is clear. So yes, we're going to have the involvement of the court, and the court will make a ruling and interpret the Constitution, and it might give some directions as to how we go on. But ultimately, it falls to retired Justice Claudette Singh and the 6 commissioners to make the decisions, and they already have. They've said, Lowenfield, you need to present your statutory report in accordance with Section 96 based on the recount data. I don't know why he would choose to go and eliminate 115,000 votes. He should do his job, as he well knows he should. You're muted, Michael.
Bishop Edghill?
Yes, thank you, Michael. Look, I'm comforted by the president of the CCJ's assurances to all the people. Their decision will not be influenced by anything that is happening outside of the court. They will be considering the submissions that were made to the court. So the madness of the lunatic fringe group coming from the APNU AFC cussing down the court, I'm comforted that the court is strong enough. These are men and women of character, high integrity, and they are very well respected jurists. So I expect the court to interpret the Constitution and make a ruling. After that ruling, I expect that Justice Claudette Singh will hold true to her public statements at the time when she took her oath of office. And that was, I will obey the Constitution and the law. I expect that her leadership will ensure that Mr. Lowenfield, as rogue as he wants to behave, is not allowed to continue in that manner. I expect that a report based upon the tabulated, certified, and verified numbers coming out of the recount will be used to declare a winner and the allocation of seats in the National Assembly, as well as into all the RDCs. I expect that Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali will be sworn in as Ghana's next president. We will have a cabinet. We will then convene parliament. We will have a budget. We'll put in place measures to alleviate the sufferings of the Guyanese people. We will start with a reconstruction of this country, and we will work to bring about national reconciliation so that Guyana could get to that place of prosperity that she deserves. This group that is unwilling to relinquish power recognizes they're at their last stage. And it is because of that, the desperation has really gotten to them. And that is why the madness, the vulgarity, the viciousness of the attack, all of that will come to an end. The David Hines who's trying to save the CCJ rule in a particular way will be a political coup. The CCJ is preventing a political coup from taking place in Guyana by ensuring that the Constitution is properly interpreted. So I will use this final words, Michael, to say to all Guyanese to remain calm, to remain hopeful, to remain prayerful. I will say to the APNU AFC supporters, continue to listen to what we have to say, be rational, be responsible, be measured. Surprise your leaders by calling upon them to concede, because they expect that the misinformation and the lies and the deception that they have given you should be energizing you to behave in a particular way. But Guyana has matured. You have matured. It's time for you to tell your leaders, concede, and let Guyana go forward. And let us all live together in peace and in harmony. So thank you, Michael, for the opportunity of sharing with you this afternoon.
Bishop Juan Edghill and Sanjeev Datadin, I thank you both for being a part of this program. Looking forward to having you again. This has been Government in Transition, presented by the People's Progressive Party. Gentlemen, thank you again.
Good afternoon. May your God be with you.
And thanks for watching and listening to this program.